class, Prof. JC here. This week we are in one of the books that you were asked to order. This is an incredible book right here. This right here is a game changer. I've been wanting to dive into it for years, and so when this class came along, I said, well, we're all going to dive into it together. This is the game changer right here. And even if we don't get through the entire book in the next 16 weeks, keep this book in your tool house. It will be of importance to you in the future. I promise you that. I just want to read some of the passages from the introduction. He talks about this idea of Adam 1 and Adam 2. I'll explain what that is here in just a second if you haven't had a chance to read it. And then I'm just going to walk through. Now, make sure you listen all the way through because the questions are going to be intermixed in the video, okay? And so make sure you're not like jumping to the end or something like that because the videos or the questions are going to be throughout. So here we go. I want to start at the very beginning. He says this, David Brooks is the author. Recently, so when I say I'm reading from the perspective of David, okay? It's not me, it's David. Recently, I've been thinking about the difference between the resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the ones you list on your resume, the skills that bring you to the job market and that contribute to external success. The eulogy virtues are deeper. They are the virtues that get talked about at your funeral, the ones that exist at the core of your being, whether you are kind, brave, honest, or faithful, what kind of relationships you formed. Most of us would say that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume virtues, but I confess, David says, that for long stretches of my life, I've spent more time thinking about the latter than the former. And here's the deal, all of us have done this, okay? If you're a business student, I know this about you, you probably have some kind of deep ambition inside of you to do something great. If you're a business or leadership student, I know that about you, okay? So if we're not careful, we focus a lot on the resume virtues, but we don't focus on what he calls the eulogy virtues. So here's the first question I have for you. I just want you to list 6 resume virtues, okay? And that means these are the things that you list on your resume that help you get the job that you want to have. So list 6 of your resume virtues and then just write 6 of your eulogy virtues. 6 resume virtues, 6 eulogy virtues. Now, don't go look these up. Okay, I want you to think, the first 6 are going to be easy for you to think about. Things that you've put on your resume, you've probably already put them there. It's the eulogy virtues that I want you to think about. What are 6 things that you want said about you when that day comes and they put you in the ground like they do everyone else? It's the one thing we all have in common. I guess 2 things. We all came into the world pretty much the same way, and we're all going to exit the world probably in different ways, right? But we're all going out no matter what. We're all going to find ourselves 6 feet under at some point, and there's going to be a group of people surrounding that, and they're going to give us, for our whole life, unless it's the people very close to us, most of the rest of the world is going to give us about a day or 2 of thinking about us, and then they're going to move on. But when they're at our funeral and they're surrounding our casket, before they bury us down 6 feet under, what are 6 things that you want to be said about you? Okay, so that's the first question. Now I want to go on and talk about this idea of Adam 1 and Adam 2. And here's what David Brooks has to say. One book that is, and I think I'm on page, let me make sure I'm on the right page. Is that page? Okay, so it's the introduction. I'm way back at the introduction. One book that has helped me think about these 2 sets of virtues is Lonely Man of Faith, which was written by Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik. Soloveitchik, I hope I'm saying that correctly, in 1965. And I'm actually going to get that book. I hope you'll get it as well. Soloveitchik noted that there are 2 accounts of creation in Genesis and argued that these represent the 2 opposing sides of nature, which he called Adam 1 and Adam 2. And if you've ever read the Bible, if you've ever read the book of Genesis, you do know that there's Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Both of them are accounts of creation, but both are different. And then the scholars would say that both of those chapters were written by 2 different people. Okay. I'm not here to debate that. That's a theology class, but I'm just here to tell you there's 2 different accounts in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. So he talks about these representing the 2 opposing sides of human nature, Adam 1 and Adam 2. Adam obviously referencing the first person mentioned in the Bible, out of the duo Adam and Eve. Okay. David Brooks goes on. He says, modernizing Soloveitchik's, I'm going to get this right, categories a bit. We could say that Adam 1 is the career-oriented, ambitious side of our nature. Most of us on this call have that, okay? Adam 1 is the external resume, okay? Adam 1 wants to build, wants to create, wants to produce and discover things. Adam 1 wants to have a high status and win the victories. Okay, that's the external. That's Adam 1. Adam 2, however, is the internal Adam. Adam 2 wants to embody certain moral qualities. Adam 2 wants to have a serene inner character, a quiet but solid sense of right and wrong, not only to do good, but to be good. Adam 2 wants to love intimately, to sacrifice self in the service of others, to live in obedience to some transcendent truth, to have a cohesive soul that honors creation and one's own possibility. He goes on to say this: while Adam 1 wants to conquer the world, Adam 2 wants to obey a calling to serve the world. Adam 1, I got to conquer the world. Adam 2, I've got to serve the world. While Adam 1 is creative and savors his or her own accomplishments, Adam 2 sometimes renounces worldly success and status for the sake of some sacred purpose. This might be a priest or a pastor or a teacher even, right? You know, think of a high school teacher that, or an elementary school teacher who says, you know, it's not about money for me. I'm here to serve the world, right? It might be a police officer, a firefighter, a nurse, right? Someone who says, I'm not here to become rich. I want to take care of my family. A social worker, right? I'm not here to be rich, but at the same time, my thing is to save the world. Okay. Adam 1 asks how things work. Adam 2 asks why things exist and what ultimately we are here for. While Adam 1 wants to venture forth, Adam 2 wants to return to its roots and savor the warmth of a family meal. While Adam 1's motto is success, Adam 2 experiences life as a moral drama. His or her motto is charity, love, and redemption. That leads us to our second question. Here's the second question I want you to consider. I want you to think about Adam 1, okay? What matters most to Adam 1 based on what we just talked about? But think about your own life too. You can throw in the things that matter to you as you're thinking about your own Adam 1. And I think that's what I want you to think about, not just the Adam 1 we just talked about, but think about your Adam 1, that part of you, okay? And I want you to write down 6 things that mean the most to your Adam 1. Okay, so that's number 1. And then the second part of that question is this: think about your Adam 2. Okay, that part of you, that Adam 2 part of you. If you need a reminder, go back and listen again what Adam 1 is and Adam 2 is. But think about that Adam 2 part of you. What matters most to your Adam 2? What matters most to your Adam 2? And then just spend a couple minutes right there, just kind of juxtaposing those two different lists. Here's what Adam 1 cares about, in your life, what your Adam 1 cares about, but here's also what your Adam 2 cares about. And again, it's not an exercise to shame one side more than the other. It's just to realize that we can live with these two different dichotomies within us. And so many of us live like this, okay? Two different sides to our nature, two different sides to who we are. He even says right here, we are called to fulfill both personae and must master the art of living forever within the tension of these two natures. Okay, we all have these two natures. There's a great poem out there about the two wolves that live with this. The two wolves within us. The one I feed. I'm going to see if I can find it. The two wolves that live within us, because this is a really good one. And it basically just talks about the two natures that every single one of us have. And if we're not careful, we tend to, forget one. Okay, so here it says, it's called the wolf you feed. And I'm bringing it up here on my phone here. I don't have good reception here on campus, whenever I'm here. Let's see if it comes up. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so here it is. The wolf you feed. It says, one evening, an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside of people. So that's you and that's me. He said, my son, the battle is between two wolves inside all of us. One is evil. It is anger, it's envy, it's jealousy, it's sorrow, it's regret, it's greed, it's arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It's joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought about it for a moment and then asked his grandfather, well, which wolf wins? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. Isn't that great? Right? It's the same concept that we're talking about here about this Adam 1, Adam 2, right? And the reality is we have both of these sides in us. That the poem we just read there, it kind of looks at it almost like one is bad and one is good. I don't necessarily want to go there with the Adam 1, Adam 2 thing. It's not necessarily that they're bad or good. It's just that these are two natures of who we are. And so we have to constantly live within that tension about who are we going to be? Who are we going to feed the most? Right? Both traits of us, the Adam 1, the Adam 2 parts of us, will take us to where we need to get to and will help us be great. If we can live fully within both, that's the ideal life. And there are very few people, you probably can think of some, there are very few people who live in full with both of these, Adam 1 and Adam 2, and they live in that tension. That's where we want to be. Okay, so it's not shaming one or the other, but that's where we want to be. So again, on that question too, think of your Adam 1 and your Adam 2. So let's move on here. David Brooks goes on to say, we live in a culture that nurtures Adam 1, the external Adam, and neglects Adam 2, the internal Adam. We live in a society that encourages us to think about how to have a great career, but leaves many of us inarticulate about how to cultivate the inner life. The competition to succeed and win admiration is so fierce that it becomes all-consuming. The consumer marketplace encourages us to live by a utilitarian calculus. I'm a little tired today, so I'm struggling with some of these words. To satisfy our desires and lose sight of the moral stakes involved in everyday decisions. The noise of fast and shallow communications makes it harder to hear the quieter sounds that emanate from the depths. We live in a culture that teaches us to promote and advertise ourselves and to master the skills required for success, but that gives little encouragement to humility, sympathy, and honest self-confrontation, which are necessary for building character. Necessary for building character. That leads us to our next question. When you hear the term, the inner life, okay, the inner life, and the person that we're looking at on the inside, okay, and if you read this book, you hear that term, you see that term come up again and again, the inner life. You've got the external and you've got the internal. That's the inner life. So when you hear the term, the inner life, what does that mean to you? The inner life. And I just want you, there's no right or wrong answer to this, okay? I just want you to think about it. What is the inner life? And what does that mean to you, okay? So that's our third question. He goes on and he talks about this. He starts talking about wise people. And he says this, he says, the job of the wise person is to swallow the frustration and just go on setting an example of caring and digging and diligence in their own lives. What a wise person teaches is the smallest part of what they give. Now watch this. The totality of their life, of the way they go about it in the smallest details, is what gets transmitted. Never forget that, David says. The message is the person. The message is the person, perfected over lifetimes of effort that was set in motion by yet another wise person, now hidden from the recipient by the dim mists of time. Life is much bigger than we think. Cause and effect intertwine in a vast moral structure that keeps pushing us to do better, become better, even when we dwell in the most painful, confused darkness. And I actually made a note here. I made a couple of notes here. one says this, that wisdom is demonstrated in the totality of one's life. I just kind of repeated what was said there. And then I wrote this, which is why it's important to seek advice from those with a lifetime of evidence. I like that. That's my own little sentence down here. Why it's important to seek advice from those with a lifetime of evidence. This is why typically we don't, for those of us on this call, we probably don't reach out to an 18 or 19-year-old and tell me, give me some advice on this choice I'm getting ready to make. Not there's anything wrong with being 18 or 19. We've all been there before. But if we're smart, we realize we go to the person who's got evidence of living a wise life. Okay, so that leads us to our next question. Who is the wisest person you have ever known? Now, it's got to be someone that you know. Don't give me, the history books. I understand that, but I want you to think about your own life and think about the wisest person that you know, and then I want you to tell me why they're the wisest person that you know. Okay? Tell me why that person, whoever that person is the wisest person you know. And as you're writing that, just be thinking about, wow, these are the traits that I look up to as being wise. Okay. And then as you're tracing your steps forward, I want you to remember this person. And as you're making decisions, you're making business decisions, you're making leadership decisions, as you're in the marketplace doing the work that you're meant to do, I want you to think about that, especially when you come up on a time where you potentially may make a decision that may have poor ramifications for the business, for you, for your team, for your organization, for your product, for your service. I want you to think back to these wise people and say, what would this wise person do? Okay. So I want you to think of the wisest person you know, and then write down, make a list of 6 to 7 to 8 things. What makes them so wise in your eyes? Okay. And then remember that as you go forward in life. The only couple, there's several people in my life that are really wise, but there's one. One is a former boss of mine. I know that I could go to him and he's really good at thinking over time. He's actually my former pastor. He and his wife are really good at thinking, pausing and thinking. And that's something I felt made them wise. It was an older couple that I met years ago. And I remember sitting with them. It was a church. It was actually another church I went to. And he was a retired doctor. She was, I don't know if she was a homemaker or if she worked. Maybe she was a teacher or something like that. But I remember they invited me to their home a few times and we would just sit and talk. And I just would listen to them. And they were just wise people, but they were very thoughtful. And so I think for me, obviously, when I think of wisdom, I think of people who are older and very thoughtful in how they make decisions. So I want you to think about that for yours. What makes that person wise? Okay. And let's finish up our time here together today. I'm going to read a couple more paragraphs here, and then it's going to lead to our final question. David Brooks says this: occasionally, even today, you come across certain people who seem to possess an impressive inner cohesion, is what he calls it. Inner cohesion. They're not leading fragmented, scattered shot lives. They've achieved inner integration. They're calm, settled, and rooted. They're not blown off course by storms. Now, they don't crumble in adversity. Their minds are consistent and their hearts are dependable. Their virtues are not the blooming virtues you see in smart college students. They are the ripening virtues you see in people who have lived a little and have learned from joy and from pain. I can't trust someone, and this is me speaking here, I can't trust someone who hasn't experienced both joy and pain. Okay? And here's one thing: the older you get, people want to know that you've experienced pain, because that is a natural thing that most people experience. And wisdom really does come from pain. It's why, when I see people who live mediocre, quiet lives and do everything they can to run away from pain, I feel sorry for them, because that is a person right there. That is a person right there who is not going to have a great life, who's not going to have lots of people who are able to look up to them, because they've never experienced sorrow. They never experienced pain. Right? Don't run from pain. Move into it. Okay, life's a journey, and we've got to experience both joy and pain. That's what creates this idea of wisdom, right? David Brooks goes on. He says, sometimes you don't even notice these people because while they seem kind and cheerful, they are also reserved. They possess the self-effacing virtues of people who are inclined to be useful, but don't need to prove anything to the world. And I talked about this earlier. Maybe I talked about it in another class. I don't know. I talked about this person that I've known, and I was having a conversation with my consulting, partner, and say that this person is tough to work with because this person is consistently trying to prove themselves. Someone didn't give them enough pats on the back. Someone didn't, give them the right amount of hugs and tell them they're good. So this person's close to my age now and still out there trying to prove themselves. And using all the people around them to make themselves. I think this was in the other class that I explained the same story. It's a person who's trying to use everyone around them to make themselves better. They're using people because they're still trying to prove themselves to the world. I think it's the most dangerous kind of person that you can work for. And I promise you, the manager that you probably cannot stand is the person who is still trying to prove themselves to the people around them. I think it's a dangerous place to be. I got off there for a second. Okay, yes, they don't need to prove anything to the world. And here's what they have. Here's what they're marked with: humility, restraint, reticence, temperance, respect, and soft self-discipline. They're not angry at themselves. It's soft self-discipline. They radiate a sort of moral joy. They answer softly when challenged harshly. They are silent when unfairly abused. They are dignified when others try to humiliate them, restrained when others try to provoke them. But they get things done. Okay, so this isn't about being a weak person. Okay, they still get things done. They perform acts of sacrificial service with the same modest, everyday spirit they would display if they were just getting the groceries. They're not thinking about what impressive work they are doing. They are not thinking about themselves at all. This is the definition of humility. It's the person who's not thinking about themselves. They are moved by mission. They're moved by their purpose. They're moved by their vision. They're moved by their mission. They're not sitting around all day thinking about what are people thinking about me. It's mission first. Every day they get up and they're thinking about what is the work that I'm going to accomplish that will help make the world a better place. Okay. They seem delighted by the flawed people around them, or they just seem delighted by the flawed people around them, which means that they're not judging everyone around them. They're just, hey, everyone's got flaws in them. So they take delight in it and just say, hey, the world is a humorous place and people are flawed. So what? Let's keep moving forward. They just recognize what needs doing and they do it. They make you feel funnier and smarter when you speak with them. They move through different social classes, not even aware, it seems, that they are doing so. After you've known them for a while, it occurs to you that you've never heard them boast. You've never seen them self-righteous or doggedly certain. They aren't dropping little hints of their own distinctiveness and accomplishments. They have not led lives of conflict-free tranquility, but have struggled towards maturity. They have gone some way towards solving life's essential problems, which is that, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn puts it, the line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. Final paragraph. These are the people who have built strong inner character, who've achieved a certain depth. And these people, at the end of this struggle, the climb to success has surrendered to the struggle to deepen the soul. After a life of seeking balance, Adam 1 bows down before Adam 2. These are the people we are looking for. When you hear the term, this is our final question, strong inner character. Okay? We talked about the inner life, but this is different. When you hear the term strong inner character, what does this mean to you? And then here's the reflective question. This is the same part of this final question here. What is your greatest barrier to building strong inner character? I'll repeat that question one more time. When you hear the term strong inner character, what does this mean to you? And what is and I want you to go deep. Don't tell me you don't have any barriers. If you do, I'm just telling you, you're not telling the truth or you're lying to yourself. And here's what I know about you. You're not a person who's going to go on and have great success in life. I'm sorry to put it to you that way. That's just the way it is. Now, again, you don't have to pour out your whole story to me, right? There are certain things you may not want to share, and that's okay. but at least in the privacy of your own world and your own journal, your own reflection, admit to yourself that you have barriers that keep you from having strong inner character. Now, at certain times you might have strong inner character, but maybe you're not quite there. Maybe it's 30% of the time or 40% of the time. What are those barriers that keep you from having strong inner character 90 to 100% of the time? I look forward to reading your answers this week. Thanks so much for joining me on this podcast. I'll see you next week. Reach out if you need me, everybody. Thanks so much for being on this journey with me. I'm very excited for everything we're going to talk about in the next few weeks. Have a great week. Take care, everyone.